All right, let's get into this great little story. On the surface, it's just about a simple transaction between two men, but stick with me because the lesson it holds, well, it's surprisingly powerful.
So picture this. We're jumping right into the thick of it. We're in a courtroom, and the charge? Deception. A pretty serious accusation.
And the accuser, he's an enraged baker. I mean, he is furious, absolutely convinced he's been cheated. So who's on the other side of this? And what in the world happened?
Okay, let's rewind a bit and look at this whole thing from the baker's perspective. It all kicked off with a really simple weekly deal he had going.
So here's the deal. Every single week, this local farmer shows up and sells the baker what's supposed to be a pound of butter. This goes on for a while, business as usual. But then one day, the baker gets a little suspicious. He thinks, let me just check this. He puts the butter on his own scale and, surprise, surprise, it's short. And not just once, but consistently. He feels totally ripped off and he's not having it. Next thing you know, he's dragging the farmer to court.
All right, so that's the baker's side of the story. Now let's flip the coin. We're back in the courtroom, and it's the farmer's turn to speak. He looks pretty poor, kind of humble, and now he's got to defend himself.
And his defense? It's interesting. He tells the judge, "Your Honor, look, I'm a poor man. I don't have any fancy official measuring weights, but I do have a scale." Now, you can imagine, this probably sounds a little sketchy, right? The judge is definitely thinking, okay, so how exactly are you using this scale then? And this, right here, is the turning point. This is where everything gets flipped on its head. That simple little scale is about to uncover a truth that's way bigger than just a few pats of butter.
So it all comes down to this, doesn't it? How did the farmer actually measure his butter? I mean, if you don't have a standard 1-pound weight, how are you supposed to measure out exactly 1 pound of anything week after week?
And the answer? It's brilliant. The farmer explains to the judge that for a long, long time, way before the baker started buying his butter, he was buying bread from the baker. Every single week, he'd buy what he was told was a 1-pound loaf of bread. And that loaf of bread was his counterweight. His system was just genius in its simplicity. Every time he went to measure the butter, he'd just pop the baker's loaf of bread on one side of his scale, then he'd scoop butter onto the other side until the scales were perfectly balanced. Simple as that. He was giving the baker the exact same weight he was getting.
So you see where this is going, right? If the butter was underweight, it could only mean one thing. The bread was underweight too. The baker was getting back exactly the measure he was giving out. The deception wasn't with the farmer at all.
And just like that, this little story about bread and butter suddenly becomes this powerful illustration of a universal principle, a kind of natural law that just governs how things work. It really boils down to this. In life, you get what you give. The baker thought he could shortchange the world with a little less bread, and in return, the world gave him a little less butter. What goes around truly does come around. But it's actually even deeper than that, isn't it? You might think you're getting away with something, fooling your customers or your friends, but really, you're just setting your own standard. The baker thought he was cheating the farmer, but in the end, he was only ever cheating himself. So, that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. In our own lives, in our work, in our relationships, what are we putting on the scale? What's our measure of a pound? Because whatever standard we're setting, that's exactly what we should expect to see coming right back to us.